Part 93. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 921. Chapter 921 Breaking News. Go, bring NGER back as soon as possible. The days are still long, so don't rush to say anything. Old Mrs. Lee let him go happily, as long as her grandson was safe and sound. Li Zhensheng immediately took his son and nephews to the study room in the outer courtyard. As soon as he entered the door, Li Zhensheng said, "Brother 11, please tell us carefully what happened when you went to sea and what news you brought back. Don't miss anything. I want to make arrangements in advance and be prepared." Reporting good news but not bad news is something that almost all the children of the Li family who are away from home are good at. Needless to say, the process of going to sea will never be as easy as Brother 11 just said. GXE knew that he couldn't hide it, and he couldn't hide it. So he started from the beginning in detail. When we went out to sea for a month, the fleet was separated due to a storm, and Angers and I's ship ran aground on a large island. The master of the Foreign Affairs Department and I were seriously injured, and the ship also needed major repairs, so we stayed there. During this period, we established diplomatic relations with small local countries and received a lot of help. Unfortunately, the master eventually passed away due to serious illness, and we received the credentials, seal, envoy staff, and the like. My that. At this point, he blushed slightly, coughed twice, and said, "Well, I got to know the princess of this small country and got married." "What, you're married?" Li Zhensheng, Ji, and others all shouted in surprise. Ji patted his younger brother's shoulder hard, dumbfounded. "You boy, you are so good. This speed is too fast." Brother Cat jumped over like a monkey and asked, "Brother, tell me quickly, what does your sister-in-law look like? Is she like those people on the street, with yellow hair and blue eyes?" Since Jia 11 has talked about it, he simply has to explain everything. "No, my wife's name is Abi, but her complexion is darker, her eyes are big and her nose is high, she doesn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. She is in the fleet. You will see her when she comes back in a few days. I got married at that time, and Angir and I took the people to continue sailing. When we returned some time ago, we went to pick up Abe, and we found out that she had given birth to a son for me. Moreover, the old king passed away, and she became the new queen. This time she handed over the government affairs to her younger brother and brought her children with me. Firstly, she went back to her husband's house with me, and secondly, she went to visit our Tianwu. After he finished speaking, no one responded for a while, and the air in the room seemed to freeze. After a long while, the cat brother jumped up and directly grabbed his brother, shouting excitedly, "Brother, you actually married the queen, the queen." Ji and Lu Yang also stepped forward and patted GXE on the back vigorously. Ji laughed and said, "You kid, you are really making a fortune in silence. If you want a wife, just marry a wife, and you actually married a queen. You are, simply shocking." Lu Yang also echoed, "If you encounter a storm, you will definitely die. Not only did you escape with your life, you also married a queen. Your luck is incredible." GXE scratched the back of his head, feeling proud and modest. "I don't know what's going on, hee, that's it anyway." Li Zhensheng slapped the boys away, pulled Jia 11 to sit down again, and asked, "Brother 11, after your wife comes back with you, will she go back to her country in the future? If the government is abandoned like this, will her brother? Will he usurp the throne? Also, are you getting married outside and marrying a foreign woman to find a way out for your family?" Hearing this, Ji, Lu Yang, and Brother Mao all sat down, their expressions becoming more solemn. Ginger is old and spicy. GXE was not surprised. The uncle guessed his and Angir's plan right away. Uncle, Abe, and I did get married because we liked each other, but going to sea is dangerous. When Ngir and I decided to continue our journey, we were afraid that she would suffer hardship with me, so after discussing with her, we left her behind. At that time, I also planned to use Abe's country as a supply station, so that I could safely stop when I came back, but I didn't expect that Abe would give birth to my child and become the queen. His younger brother is only 8 years old. He was brought up by Abe since he was a child. He has a good relationship. He likes painting and reading and does not like politics. So for the time being, there is no possibility of usurping power. I have discussed it with Ngir. If my family allows me, I can live in her country with Abe and my children in the future. Her country can also be our family's last resort, and it's not difficult to even transit there and go to a country further out on the sea. Of course, it would be better if this escape route is not used at home. In the future, it will not be difficult for us to come back and move around after being separated by a month sea route. Li Zhensheng sighed inwardly, feeling happy and distressed at the same time. The children in the family have really grown up. Almost all of them have seen the dangers and shortcomings behind the current prosperity of the family. They are doing their best to add wings to the family and looking for a last resort. Okay, Uncle understands. Li Zhensheng nodded, thought for a while and asked, are there any envoys from other countries in your fleet? Yes, Uncle Jia 11 responded, we have visited 7 or 8 countries in the past 3 years, and envoys from almost every country have followed us to visit our Tianwu. But these envoys almost all have low titles in their countries. Even if there is danger at sea, there will be no loss to their country. If we have to talk about status, of course, the one with the highest status is Abe, the queen. Li Zhensheng nodded repeatedly. If Abe and the child come back to recognize their ancestors, it will naturally be our Li family's business. But now that she is visiting as a queen, and envoys from other countries, she has to report to the court. The Marquis is about to send troops to regain Jiangbei, and the entire Tianwu army is full of fighting spirit at this time. If all nations come to congratulate him, the emperor and the court will definitely welcome it. In a moment, I will take you and Ji to see General Tang of the Hailan army and ask him to send a warship to meet the envoy fleet, and also ask him to write the memorial to be reported. But I will write a letter to the Marquis privately to explain the matter between you and the Queen, and then the Marquis will tell the Emperor. In this way, after you arrive in Kyoto, others will lose the opportunity even if they want to provoke you. Okay, Uncle, just make arrangements, we will listen to him. Jia 11 responded quickly. No matter how much he and Jian learned at sea, they were only able to face natural risks. When it comes to guessing people's opinions, it's still a long way to go. Now that you are home, it is wisest to listen to your elders in everything. Li Ji patted his younger brother on the shoulder and said with a smile, you came back in time, I will get married in a few days. You are here in Quanzhou, you have to repair it for half a month, just in time to drink the wedding wine before returning to Xindu. Li Zhensheng thought of this and quickly told the boys, when the time comes, if your grandma wants to follow the fleet back to Xindu, you must help me persuade her to stay. This year the Marquis will regain Jiangbei. Once successful, the situation in the new capital and the court will inevitably change greatly. No one can say for sure. They are here in Quanzhou, and everyone in the family is relieved. When something does happen, there is no need to be afraid of being caught. Everyone nodded. Jiaxi remembered something and suddenly said, Uncle, I have a ready-made reason. What's the reason? Li Zhensheng asked curiously. 2 more updates. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 922. Chapter 922. The secret is about to rot in the stomach. I will tell Abe to ask her to make a request with Grandma. The matchmaker is marrying into our Li family, and she wants to settle down in Quanzhou. Jia 11 smiled a little bit, and added, with Grandma's temper, She is afraid of serving a bowl of water. The injustice caused discord among our brothers, so we will definitely agree. When the time comes, I will take Abe to Zinda for an audience first, and we will get married when we come back. Our home in Quanzhou will be convenient for Abe and I to come back often in the future. Grandma, my mother, and my fourth aunt will stay and help me prepare things. This is a good idea. Li Zhensheng immediately nodded in approval and said, originally, our Li family has to marry their grandson's daughter-in-law through a matchmaker. You can't neglect her just because your daughter-in-law is not a Tianwu girl. Jiaxi glanced at the door and added a few words in a lowered voice. We were very lucky this time and met two people. Everyone immediately stopped smiling, and after looking surprised, they changed to understanding. It turns out it's her. At first I guessed that it was related to her, but I didn't expect it to be true. Ji and the others couldn't help it, and they all shouted out in low voices. Li Zhen was afraid that the boys would not understand the importance, so he quickly ordered, as soon as we receive the person, we must immediately send him back to the new capital. We cannot follow the envoy's fleet to reduce the risk. Don't tell anyone about this matter. Give it to me, it's rotten in the stomach, you know. Ji and the others nodded quickly, and Li Zhensheng felt relieved. After talking for a while, Li Zhensheng sent someone to the backyard to inform him, and then took Jiaxi, Ji, and Lu Yang to the military camp. Brother Cat couldn't stand still, so Pai Dian also followed him. In the backyard, Mrs. Li was taking Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru to rummage through their suitcases. In the past few years, they have made clothes and shoes for Jia 11 and Jian. It's a pity that after finishing one batch after another, I just couldn't wait for the person to come back, so in the end they were all given to Brother Cat. Even if there is good news, I have to wear two sets. Occasionally when I dress up as a boy and go out to play, I wear one. Now, Jiaxi and Jian are finally back. Zhao Yuru opened her mouth from ear to ear in joy and said, didn't you say that the food on the sea is not delicious? I see that this kid 11GER has grown a lot. If he eats well, his head might hit the roof beam. Huaniyang, sister-in-law Lu, and Mrs. Wen all sat nearby and joined in the fun. They all laughed when they heard this. Tao Hongying was thinking about her son and responded, Brother 11 and Brother N were about the same height when they left home. Now, Brother N should be as tall as Brother 11, right? The food at sea is not good, but they often come to the shore and change the water and soil all the time. How could they not grow taller? That's the same truth. Zhao Yuru pulled the sapphire blue gown in her hand and added with a look of regret, these two boys are just like the black charcoal sunburn. I'm afraid such a bright color is inappropriate. Mrs. Wen couldn't help but laugh and said, when the children didn't come back, it seemed like you were expecting something. Now that the children are back, you think the parents are evil again. If I were a boy, I would just marry a wife and have children outside, and I won't come back and listen to your nagging. How dare they? You brat is going to stir up trouble. Tao Hongying glared and scolded with a smile, if they dare to disobey, they will no longer be allowed to cook delicious food, and they will be starved to death. Everyone laughed when they thought of Caigxi's eating appearance just now. Indeed, this threat must be very effective. While he was talking, Zheng Qi came from the front to report, Madam, the eldest master has led the young men to the military camp. It will be very late when he comes back. The eldest master said, please don't worry about it and rest early. Okay, I got it. Mrs. Li responded with a smile and asked again, I heard that Zheng Si is also back. You brothers haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's get together. Whatever you want to eat, let the kitchen cook it. Don't polite. Thank you, madam, Zheng Qi quickly saluted, smiling happily. He and Zheng Si are not biological brothers, but they belong to the same family. They grew up together and studied arts together since childhood, so they are closer than their previous brothers. After being separated for several years, we finally reunited, but there was still so much to talk about. With the old lady's instructions, he went to the kitchen to ask for some good dishes and a jar of wine, and the brothers talked freely. Seeing Zheng Kyle walking out, Tao Hongying also put down her clothes and said, "During dinner, brother and the others didn't eat much. I also went to the kitchen to make a pot of bone soup, and when brother and the others came back, I would make some noodles to eat. I just made some side dishes a few days ago, which are perfect to go with the soup noodles." As she spoke, she hurried to the kitchen. Mrs. Li couldn't help but laugh and said, "The two boys are back. Hong Ying has two more people to support her craftsmanship, and she will start to get busy again." "It's better to be busy," Zhao Yuri responded. "As long as the children like it, a mother will be happy no matter how busy she is." Huanayang, Mrs. Wen and others also nodded. Parents' love for their children is always the most unreserved. In the Hailan army camp, General Tang was a little surprised when he heard that his uncle and nephew from the Li family asked for an audience. After all, it was already getting late. If it were not an emergency, the Li family would not be so imprudent. Sure enough, when Li Zhensheng and others entered the main account, the first thing Jia 11 did was to hand over his badge from the Foreign Affairs Department. When the Foreign Affairs Department went to see for an unannounced visit, General Tang also knew about it, and he even knew that two of them were boys from the Li family. Otherwise, he would not have allowed Ji Yi to go to sea every day and wander around in search. In the past 2 years, he occasionally mentioned that he secretly thought that the boy from the Li family was in danger. The sea is ruthless and full of dangers. Swallowing hundreds of people would be like a joke. Unexpectedly, the boy from the Li family was so lucky and came back unscathed. "It'll be good to come back, it'll be good to come back." General Tang looked at GXC carefully, and the more he looked at it, the more he liked it. "This guy looks good. He looks smart. He is tall, with a straight back and full of energy. With his years of experience in leading troops, this boy's men must have been stained with blood. There is a hint of sharpness hidden in his smiling eyebrows." Thinking about the fact that his old wife at home always wanted to marry his granddaughter to the Li family, he was even more interested in his granddaughter-in-law's satisfaction. GXC was a little embarrassed by the sight, and complained in his mind that the old general looked like a matchmaker. But he did not dare to say anything. He bowed respectfully and reported, "General, we went to sea this time and brought back envoys from 8 foreign countries. They want to go to the new capital to worship and see the emperor. I'm afraid I have to trouble the general to send a ship to the sea to meet him, and he also needs to rely on the general to settle down after landing, and report to the court." Okay, this is what it should be. When General Tang heard that envoys from 8 countries were visiting, he immediately gave up his selfish motives and quickly calculated in his mind. His eyes lit up. Crossing the ocean, meeting the 8 countries. The emperor and the court will definitely be happy if this news is sent to the new capital. After all, everyone loves the good thing of applying powder on your face. Especially for the emperor, the loss of Jiangbei in his hands will definitely be a stain on the history books. Now that this stain is about to be eliminated, applying a handful of gold powder at this time is simply the icing on the cake. Dear treasures, there is only one update today, and it will be like this even for the next few days, because 4 people have died in the family, and Huahua cannot hold on anymore. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 923. Chapter 923. A great contribution. Hailan army assisted the envoys from the 8 countries to enter the court. Even if they could not get a share of the pie, they would still have a greater sense of presence in front of the emperor and the court. When the time comes, put together the information about the good news and the information about the replacement of armors and weapons by the Hailan army. When the emperor is happy, he might just approve it. With this in mind, he immediately ordered, Ji, take a boat to meet the envoys from the 8 countries. Before Ji could respond, Jiaxi waved his hand to stop him, then stepped forward and said a few words in General Tang's ear. General Tang stood up suddenly in shock. Li Zhensheng immediately stopped what General Tang had blurted out, General, the walls have ears. Otherwise we wouldn't have entered the camp in the dark. General Tang forced down the shock in his heart, nodded slightly, and after a while, he changed his order, Ji, you and Liu Yang will take 2 ships and 1,000 soldiers and go to sea immediately to greet the mission. If there is anything valuable, you can take the boat to the small pier and go ashore first, I'll have someone pick you up. Yes, General Ji and Liu Yang came out, responded in unison, and took the order. Since seagoing ships are relatively large, the pier when entering the port is naturally also very large. There were many ships and people coming and going, and it was a bit chaotic. However, there is a small pier 5 or 6 miles away from the big pier, which can be regarded as the private port of the Tang family. It is usually guarded by veterans and wounded soldiers who have followed the Tang family for generations. The important things of the fleet can be disembarked from here, and the news will never be leaked. After confirming the details, Ji and Liu Yang set off with Jiaxi and their follower Cat Brother. General Tang Lao also began to write a memorial. Li Zhensheng asked for paper and pen, and wrote a letter to the Marquis together. Then together with the memorial from General Tang Lao, he was rushed to Kyoto for 800 miles. The Li family didn't take it politely when they wanted to take advantage of their food. They just took advantage of the fast horse. Not only was General Tang not angry, he was actually very happy. For no other reason, he secretly stared at the Li family boy, hoping to catch him and take him home as his grandson-in-law. In the Li family yard, Mrs. Li said that she didn't wait for her children and grandchildren, but how could she not miss them? As a result, by midnight, only Li Zhensheng came back, and the rest of the boys went to sea to meet the fleet. Old Mrs. Li laughed and cursed a few words and didn't care. It's a pity that Tao Hongying prepared so many bone soup noodles, but it won't be wasted. Li Zhensheng ate a big bowl, and the rest was made for supper for the attendants and servants in the outer courtyard. They were all happy after eating. On the night of the second day, when the sea and sky were at their darkest, the 2 boats cut through the sea at speed and arrived at the small pier next to the military port. The veterans of the Tang family held torches and circled 3 times before Liu Yang and Ji jumped off the boat and quickly handed over. Then, the 3 large wooden boxes were moved to the Tang family's carriage. 2 of the wooden boxes are heavy and tightly nailed, but the other wooden box has gaps, and occasionally you can hear some humming sounds inside. But the veterans of the Tang family were well trained and didn't seem to hear anything. They quickly drove the carriage into the night, walking quietly and leaving no trace. Ji and Liu Yang got on the boat again and slipped into the sea. Liu Yang turned around and asked, "Such a huge achievement, just give it to the general." Ji smiled carelessly and responded, "It's not like you don't know that the general has a tight control over Quanzhou. It's impossible to hide it from him. Why not be generous and let him contribute? I will also share the credit when the time comes. And what I mean is that the general took great pains to get me out of prison in Kyoto, so I should return the favor this time." Yes, Liu Yang nodded and whispered, "Jiaxi and Jian brought envoys from 8 countries back this time, which is enough publicity. Especially Jiaxi actually married the queen, just think about it, everyone must be shocked. Eyeballs, I just want to laugh." Ji couldn't help but laugh. "I didn't expect that this kid has been very naughty since he was a child, and he actually has this ability when he grows up. I'm afraid the family is also surprised now. They are all waiting to see Jia 11's wife and children." Yes, fortunately grandma is open-minded, otherwise Jiaxi would have had a big butt. How did they know that Li Zhensheng was so busy that he never had the chance to talk about it? The family has no idea that there is an extra daughter-in-law for the queen. Sunrise on the sea is one of the most magnificent wonders in the world. The red sun, like a fireball, rises little by little from below the sea level. The moment it completely jumps out of the sea and sky are instantly covered with a golden coat. It is simply beautiful and makes people look at it. At this time, there were already many people waiting in the morning breeze at the Hailan military port pier. General Tang took several generals from the camp with him, as well as Quanzhou prefect who was just notified yesterday, and finally Mrs. Li and others. The governor of Quanzhou specially saluted Mrs. Li with a very polite expression. He has no side in the court and no backers. He is just an ordinary official. Otherwise, he would not have been assigned to Quanzhou as the prefect. After all, in the eyes of the world, Quanzhou is a remote place where birds do not shed. He also felt at ease, guarding Quanzhou and staying in a corner. But the Li family is a popular person in front of the emperor, and they are very favored by the emperor. He could have pretended not to know before and not take the initiative to visit Li's house. Now that we meet face to face, the etiquette is no longer lacking. Old Mrs. Li is very easygoing and doesn't put on any airs. She just exchanges a few words. The governor was quite satisfied, but when he looked at General Tang, his mood became complicated. Hai Lanjun's prestige in Quanzhou is too high. Even though he is only one of the parents, he can't even say 100 words to General Tang. Envoys from 8 countries traveled across the ocean to pay tribute. He was actually the last to know about such a major event. At this time, let alone share the credit, if the reception is not good, you will be punished. It is really suffocating. But he couldn't complain about holding his breath. Having a big fist is the last word. Nowadays, it is obvious that both the Tang family and the Li family have bigger fists than him. While everyone was having different thoughts, a dozen large ships turned their backs to the fiery morning sun and sailed from the sea to the sky. The first 2 ships have the flags of Hailan army, the next 3 ships have the flags of Tianwu, and the rest are a bit complicated, with various patterns, and they also represent the visiting envoys from the 8 countries. The Li family was so excited that they all tried to look around. Tao Hongying supported Mrs. Li and asked anxiously, "Where is Brotherin? Why can't I see it yet? This boat is moving too slowly." "Oh, don't worry, I'll see you soon," Mrs. Li comforted her daughter-in-law, but she still secretly raised her feet. She had a green jade hairpin in her bun, which reflected the morning light and reflected on her face, as if there was light hidden in the wrinkles. Jian stood on the side of the ship, wearing black clothes and trousers, which made him as cold and straight as a birch tree in the north. He was also trying to look around, and saw his mother and grandma almost at the first sight. He had been holding back tears for nearly 3 years, but he couldn't hold back anymore and ran out wildly. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 924. Chapter 924, Marry a queen as your granddaughter-in-law. Mom, Grandma, he couldn't wait for the boatman to set up the springboard, so he jumped directly from the bow of the boat, threw himself in front of the Li family, and fell to his knees. Mom, Grandma, the unfilial son and gear is back. Brotherin, Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying rushed forward, hugged Jian and burst into tears. Tao Hongying wished she could stuff her son back into her belly again, as if this way she could clearly feel that her son was alive and that he was by her side. Nearly 3 years and 1,000 days and nights, she soaked so many pillows and had so many nightmares. I finally got my son back. The son is safe and healthy, with no missing nose or eyes. Old Mrs. Li was also crying so hard that she couldn't breathe. The Li family has no shortage of grandchildren, and now they even have several great-grandchildren. But every one of them is her concern. Especially the 2 boys, Jia and Jia 11, were the naughtiest and the ones she beat and scolded the most, so naturally they were the ones she cared about the most. Originally in Zindu, she talked about it more lightly. Since arriving in Quanzhou and seeing the vastness and danger of the sea, her heart has truly become cold. She wanted to pray to all the gods and Buddhas, and secretly kowtowed 81 times every day before going to bed, just to pray for her grandson's safe return. Now, finally, all my wishes have come true. Brethren, we will never leave again. At least we have to wait until Grandma goes to see your grandpa before you go out to sea. Grandma is old and can't stand your threats like this. Mrs. Li reached out and patted her grandson. My back felt angry and distressed. Tao Hongying was even more powerful and pinched her son several times. Damn boy, you're going to worry mom to death. Wow, neither you nor your father are good people. If you go to sea, he will go to war, and mom will cut her heart into pieces. You don't want me to live. Huanayang, sister-in-law Lu and Mrs. Wen all wiped their tears. Mrs. Wen quickly persuaded her, Auntie, Hongying, stop crying. It's good that the child is back. You don't have to worry about it in the future. The family is reunited. Huanayang also said, yes, yes, just come back safely. Sister-in-law Lu was about to speak when she saw a tall woman wearing a gauze skirt and veil walking over with a child. She quickly reminded everyone, Auntie, it seems, there are guests. Guest. Everyone heard the sound and looked over, guessing that the woman was from the country of Fan. After all, her dress and facial features were completely different from those of the Tianhua people. Tao Hongying had sharp eyes, looked at it carefully, and suddenly said, oh, why does this child look like a star? Everyone was reminded and couldn't help but nod. The woman was a little anxious and said, the nest is like Liga's joy. Everyone doesn't understand and don't know how to respond. The woman pointed at Ngir, who was wiping her tears. Before she could say anything else, Tao Hongying had already woken up. She pulled her son's ears and cursed, you bastard, you are marrying me and having children outside. Jian tilted his head in pain. He glanced at the woman and the child from the corner of his eye. He suddenly realized and shouted, Mom, it's not me, it's not me. It's brother 11, his wife and son. Happy family. Tao Hongying thought for a while. Jia 11 didn't say anything before. He couldn't hide such a big thing no matter what, so. You brat, you still dare to lie? If you dare to do something but don't take it seriously, don't say he is my son in the future. Tao Hongying's men really tried their best. Jian doesn't care how strong he is in body and how majestic he is on the sea, he is just a good cat under my old lady, begging for mercy all the time. Mom, I really didn't lie. They are the children of brother 11's wife, and they are the queen and crown prince of the kingdom of gods and Buddhas. Mrs. Li originally wanted to intercede with her grandson, but she felt a little weak after hearing this. Fortunately, Jiaxi finally arrived at this time. Everyone who had been eating melon for a long time asked almost in unison. Jiaxi, are this woman and child your wife and child? Jia 11 was stunned for a moment, then subconsciously shrank his neck and responded, didn't my uncle tell my family in the past 2 days? These are my wife and children. You brat. Now it was Zhao Yuru's turn to get angry. She raised her hand and patted her son on the back. Your second brother made a big fuss at the beginning and thought you were a good person. Unexpectedly, you are not a bit good. After the death of my son. He even told his family to get married, but you went to sea to bring back your wife, children. Jiaxi immediately hugged my mother's arm and coaxed her with a smile, Mom, Mother, I was wrong. I should have told my family earlier, but it was really inconvenient to contact me outside. Abe is the princess of the Golden Buddha Kingdom, and when I was injured and exiled to their country, she helped me a lot and almost saved my life. I got married to her, and when I came back from the sea to pick her up, I found out that the child was also born. Zhao Yuru listened from beginning to end, and her eyes turned red when she was angry. She knew that her son was in danger outside, but she didn't know that he almost died. This foreign woman in front of me is not only the daughter-in-law, but also the savior of her son, not to mention that she has brought her grandson back. She couldn't help but look at her mother-in-law. Mom, this kid Jiaxi is really ignorant, but he has also endured hardship. Halfway through her words, she was stopped by Mrs. Li, who said angrily, "This is a happy event, don't worry, I won't be happy. Whose grandson is more powerful than my grandson? The queen has already married her." After saying that, she called Jia 11, "Hurry up and invite your wife over here and let grandma see her. There is also grandma's great-grandson." "Okay, grandma." Jiaxi hurriedly walked to the woman's side, murmured for a long time, and finally took his wife and children one by one and walked forward. The woman bowed awkwardly and said, "Abby, please give me a favor." The child's pronunciation was much clearer, and he said crisply, "Hello, Grandma, I'm Wenwen." "Hey, okay, okay." Mrs. Li was so happy that she patted Abe's hand, bent over and picked up Wenwen, and said with a smile, "No wonder everyone said that Wenwen and Xing Xing look alike. Their fathers are brothers, how can they be different?" Everyone also laughed. Zhao Yuru was not familiar with his daughter-in-law yet, but he was close to his grandson by blood. She quickly took Wenwen from her mother-in-law's hand. Seeing that the child was a little tanned and thin, with distress all over her face, she coaxed over and over again, "Wenwen is home, Grandma will prepare delicious food for you, it's all your fault for bringing you and your mother back." Abby couldn't understand what everyone was saying, especially since her husband and brother-in-law had just been pinched and beaten. She was always worried. But at this moment, everyone was laughing and hugging her son, so she finally felt relieved. At this time, General Tang Lao and Mr. Fu Yin, accompanied by Li Zhensheng and Jia Yi, came over to see the ceremony. The kingdom of gods and Buddhas is not big, so naturally it cannot compare with Tianwu. But Abe is the queen of a country, and she is on an equal footing with the emperor in terms of etiquette. So, General Tang Lao and Master Fu Yin were very polite. Jia 11 stepped forward to help translate. Abe, who was still worried and cautious just now straightened his back. His expression was full of nobility and pride, as if he had become a different person. Mrs. Li and others were watching, finally feeling a bit more realistic about marrying the queen as her granddaughter-in-law. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 925. Chapter 925. The Li family's luck is incredible. Compared to the Li family, General Tang and Lord Fuyin were naturally more surprised. There is a queen among the envoys of the 8 countries, which is incredible enough. After all, it is too rare for a woman to sit on the throne. Unexpectedly, not only is the queen here, she is also the granddaughter-in-law of the Li family, and she even gave birth to a child. In other words, maybe in 20 years, the king of the Golden Buddha Kingdom will be the grandson of the Li family, and the Golden Buddha Kingdom will become the territory of the Li family. The two of them really tried their best to endure it again and again, so that they didn't let their chins hit their feet. No wonder people say that the Li family is lucky. This is simply unlucky. However, General Tang was surprised and a little regretful. Because the one who married the queen was actually his favorite Li Jiaxi, and his grandson-in-law flew away. But soon, the regret disappeared. Compared to Li Jiaxi, Li Jian is a little less sleek and shrewd, a little more calm and generous, and has thick eyebrows and big eyes, and is also more handsome. Although Ai Bei is the queen, she is smart and has a deep relationship with Jia 11. Naturally, she wants to follow Jia 11 back to the Li family for a short stay. As for the remaining envoys from the 7 countries, Mr. Fuyan settled them in the post house in Quanzhou. There are often people coming and going in Quanzhou, so government inns are always safer than ordinary inns. So, over the years, the post house has been built very well, and now it can accommodate 100 or 10 people, so it is not too shabby. After a few words of greeting, things were arranged and everyone dispersed. Ji Yi and Liu Yang followed the envoy to the post house. Mrs. Li took Ji Yi and got into the carriage, while Zhao Yuru took Jiaxi, Abe, and her son into the second one. Tao Hongying, Mrs. Wen, Huanayang, and others were curious about how Jiaxi could marry the queen, so they also got on the first carriage. Jian just had his ears pinched because of his brother. Of course he couldn't hide it for him now. If he took the blame again, wouldn't his ears be in trouble again? So, he betrayed his brother completely. Grandma, you don't know, brother 11 just gets jealous and repays kindness with enmity. It's a pity that as soon as he started, he was hit hard by my mother. Tao Hongying scolded, speak well. How could anyone say that about my brother? Jian giggled and quickly changed his words, that, I used the wrong word. Brother 11 and sister-in-law Abe fell in love at first sight, a match made in heaven. When we encountered a storm at sea, we couldn't bear it anymore, so we had to tie ourselves to the pillar. I was knocked unconscious when I woke up. The big ship had already run aground on the beach. The other two ships were nowhere to be seen. My brother and our master were both injured. There were only over 50 people left on the ship out of 100 or 10, it was really miserable. At this time, sister-in-law Ab took people out to sea and met us. She kindly came to rescue us and helped us find a doctor. She also had our boat repaired and food and water delivered to us. Later, I took some porcelain, went to the city to exchange for coins, rented a yard, and took everyone to live there. Sister-in-law Abe often came around to take care of my brother, and she took a liking to my brother every time she came here and there. We didn't know her identity at first, and it wasn't until someone came to trouble us that we found out that sister-in-law Abby had been involved. Her father, the old king, is dying, and many aristocratic families want to marry her and control the country by controlling her. We discussed it and helped Abe destroy half of the family and stabilize the government. Sister-in-law Abe was so grateful that she asked my brother to marry me in front of the old king, and he agreed. Because we had to go to sea, I asked my master to be a witness and let my brother and sister-in-law Abe get married. After we got married, our master died of illness, and the old king was also seriously ill. Sister-in-law Abe wanted to stay and take care of us, so she did not leave with us. Until we returned recently, we met sister-in-law Abby again. She has become the queen and has given birth to a nephew. That's it, it's really simple. Jian shrugged his shoulders, spread his hands, and spoke in an understatement, like a running account, but the dangers and twists and turns in it could be guessed by anyone. Tao Hongying was not willing to pull her son's ears anymore. She hugged him in her arms and wanted to say a few words of sympathy and comfort, but finally she condensed them into one sentence. Go home, Mom will prepare delicious food for you, you can order whatever you want. That's great, Mom. Jian was so happy that she said, Mom, I want to eat braised pork, sweet and sour pork ribs, fried meatballs, pot-wrapped pork. The names of these dishes are all meat, which made everyone laugh again. Glutty boy, Tao Hongying was annoyed, but she still deserved to be happy. Okay, I'll keep it for you to enjoy. Chatting and laughing all the way, we soon entered Quanzhou City and arrived at the Li family yard. Because he didn't know the existence of Abe's mother and son, it was really unprepared to bring people back so suddenly. After getting off the carriage, Tao Hongying drove Zhao Yuru to accompany her new daughter-in-law and grandson. Then she took the people herself and quickly cleaned up a side yard. Li Zhensheng has been operating in Quanzhou for several years. His family is rich and there is no shortage of anything in the warehouse. Cleaning up the yard sounds troublesome, but in fact it only involves hanging a bed tent, adding some wood utensils and supplies, and laying out new bedding. In just half an hour, we are almost ready. At this time, the ingredients have been disposed of in the kitchen. Tao Hongying went to the main room to say something, and then hurriedly went to fry. Jiaxi brought his wife and children back to the yard, and Zhao Yuru sent her maid Jiao to help Abe, because the two slave girls Abe brought were unfamiliar with everything. Jian was also dragged by Brother Cat, and they went to wash up and change clothes together. Soon, brunch was put on the table, and everyone came over with a new look. Jiaxi was wearing a camel brocade robe, which made his figure even more upright. Jian, on the other hand, is dressed in a sky blue gown after the rain, with a jade belt wrapped around his waist, which makes him look even more calm and noble. Old Mrs. Li couldn't help but hold one of her grandson's hands and nodded repeatedly. It's true that you didn't leave home for 3 years in vain. You have really made a difference. I don't know how many people will envy our family when you go out like this. Yes, mother, these two boys have been naughty since they were young. They would even open their butts to look at them. They are so naughty. No one thought that they would be as promising as they are now. Zhao Yuru also sighed with emotion, making Jiazai and Hejian blush. Jiaxi protested, Mom, that's how many years ago, what kid isn't naughty? Besides, I'm married, you can just tell me. Brotherin didn't marry a wife, so be careful of outsiders finding out. People are willing to find him as their son-in-law. Well, let's not talk about it anymore. Zhao Yuru teased her son, if you let it slip again, I will put everything on your head and pick out Anjur. At this time, Wen Juan came over accompanied by Abe and her son. Abby has changed into a gauze skirt and removed the veil. She wore a light blue dress with magnolia flowers all over the ground, a bright moon bun, a beaded hairpin with gems and flowers and butterflies inserted sideways, and a pair of emerald bracelets on her wrists. She has deep facial features, thick eyebrows, big eyes, a high nose and red lips. This dress makes her even more beautiful. Everyone was surprised and praised him one after another. Jiaxi's wife is really suitable for our Tianwu's dress. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Ai didn't understand, but she guessed that everyone was complimenting her. She smiled and held up her hairpin, obviously liking Tianwu's jewelry very much. Jia 11 looked proud and raised his chin, making everyone laugh even harder. Wenwen also changed into sapphire blue clothes and pants, her hair was combed up, and she wore a square scarf of the same color. She looked like a little scholar, very cute. Mrs. Li loved it so much that she held Wenwen in her arms and asked questions. It was a busy time when suddenly there was a loud grunting sound, which attracted everyone to look over. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 926. Chapter 926. She is proud of you. In the end, it was not Jian and Jia 11 who were greedy, but Ai's face turned red and she covered her stomach. Mrs. Li quickly said, Oh, I forgot about the real thing while talking. I'm hungry too, so hurry up and start eating. Everyone sat down together. In order to take care of Abby and fear that she would feel strange and uncomfortable, there was no distinction between men and women this time, and everyone sat at 2 tables together. Orange Mrs. Li sat with Jia 11, Ai and Wenwen, as well as Zhao Yuru, Tao Hongying, Mrs. Wen, Huanyang and sister-in-law Lu. Li Zhensheng let Jian to sit at a table with Mao Gear, Ji Yi, Lu Yang and others. Wen Juan was worried about the children, so she took Xiaoqing, sister-in-law Qian and others to eat with the children in the house. Although the north and south are still separated, the family members are not all together. But Jiaxi and Jian are back, and Jiaxi has brought his wife and children with him, which is enough to make the family very happy. Old Mrs. Lee was very busy as she was happily picking up vegetables for her grandson and fish bones for her great-grandson. The family didn't stop her, they all knew that the old lady was trying her best to make up for the shortcomings of the past few years. Ween Wen also ate the food cooked by Chef Tianwu on the ship, but the skills of the cooks who needed to work on the ship to make a living were obviously not very good. At this moment, there were chicken, fish, meat, and eggs on the table, which looked appetizing and tasted even more delicious, but he was very happy. He gnawed the meatballs and then grabbed the chicken legs. After finishing the chicken legs, he picked up the ribs. His little mouth was full and his calves were kicking with excitement. This reminded everyone of the good news from Broken Gold Beach, and they fell in love with Ween Wen even more. Perhaps they are familiar with each other. Ween Wen kept eating and spoke eloquently. "Grandma, Daddy said the dumplings are delicious." Mrs. Lee guessed that Gxi was showing off the dumplings at home with her children, so she said, "Ween Wen wants to eat dumplings. Well, Grandma will make them for you tonight. Pork and scallion stuffing, beef and radish stuffing, fresh food stuffing, and vegetarian stuffing. I'll give you a try, eat whichever one you like." Ai Bei's eyes lit up after hearing this, and he was obviously very interested in dumplings. Everyone couldn't help but laugh when they saw it. Multiple queens' wives don't seem to be a bad thing, at least this queen is not difficult to get along with. After dinner, everyone gathered together and talked for a while. Mrs. Lee felt sorry for the children's hard work, so she excused herself from being tired and asked everyone to go back to the house to rest. Sure enough, after eating and drinking, and having a good night's sleep, Jian and Gxi's family were very energetic when they woke up. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru also prepared the fillings, and Wen Juan took Bei to wash hands together and learn to make dumplings. Xing and Yuier and other children gathered together and followed, which was not helpful. Finally, Mrs. Lee stuffed her with a dough ball and kicked her out to play. The children found small wooden sticks, stuck them into the dough, and ran to the stove to cook it. Their mouths were full of mush, and they smiled with white teeth, not to mention how happy they were. Li Zhensheng and the boys sat in the side room, opened the door, and looked after the children while talking. Although Jian and Gxi had already heard Ji Yi talk about the situation and changes in Tianwu when they were on the boat, Ji Yi had been in Quanzhou for several years and did not understand it as well as Li Zhensheng. Li Zhensheng did not hide anything, no matter good or bad. He told his nephews everything, including the battles with various aristocratic families in Xindu, and the intention of Ji Yin to enter the palace on his own initiative. Ji Yi and the others frowned upon hearing this, with a bit of anger and guilt in their expressions. They have been protected and raised by their families since childhood. In their hearts, their families are an extremely solid support. Now they suddenly heard that their family was being bullied and embarrassed, and even their younger sister was forced to go to the palace to mediate with the Queen Mother. They really wanted to give themselves a few slaps. They are still useless. If they were invincible and no one dared to mess with them, how could their family have such arrangements? Uncle, we are incompetent. As an elder brother, we can't protect our sister's happiness and worry-free, and put her in danger. Jian's eyes were red, and he choked up and couldn't speak. Gxi and Ji Yi also lowered their heads, feeling equally guilty. Li Zhensheng quickly waved his hands. He did not say this to hurt his nephews. Don't think so. When we left Xindu, Fu Niu especially said a few words to me, just to be afraid that you would be like this. She said that no one is born invincible and has to grow and experience. Your family doesn't help you much. All your glory is achieved by your own efforts. She is very proud of you. Fu Niu, this silly girl. Ji Yi couldn't help but choke when he remembered that his sister must have looked as serious as a young adult when she said this. Jian and Gxi couldn't wait to go back to Xindu and hug the sister they missed day and night. After 3 years away from home, they were able to return safely due to their efforts and persistence, but more importantly, they relied on the preparations their sister had made for them. Every time they are saved at the critical moment of life or death, they will be extremely happy and grateful. Of course, some people asked them why they knew so much about voyages since they had never been to the sea. They didn't say a word and only blamed the old fishermen in their family's fleet. Even now, some of the people who have returned from the same trip still want to meet this old fisherman. It's Brother Cat. Among all the brothers in the family, he has spent the most time with his sister in the past few years. At this moment, he smiled with great determination. We are also proud of Funiur. She is the most powerful and best sister in the world. That old witch in the palace just wants to bully others. When she meets Funiur, absolutely no good fruit to eat. Li Zhensheng also smiled, patted his son on the shoulder, and responded, "You are right. I received news from home a few days ago that the old witch has been causing trouble for Funiur. But Funiur and the third princess live and eat together. She has her own ideas in everything, and the third princess takes the lead in everything. Not only did the old witch not take advantage of her, she also suffered a lot." Sure enough, the boys all became happy after hearing this. Li Zhensheng added, "Funiur said at the beginning that she entered the palace not for her family, but for herself. She is the princess, and she will always be exposed to these things in the future. Now that her family is supporting her, she is protected by the Marquis and the Emperor, and the three princesses are her helpers. This is the best opportunity for her to gain experience. I also hope that you won't stop Funiur and don't think about getting her out of the palace. Just like you need to grow up and learn skills, Funiur also needs it. And with the Marquis and family taking care of her, if Funiur was in danger, she would have been protected long ago. You brothers, if you really care about your sister, do your part. Only when all 7 of you make a difference can you be my sister's support. Uncle, father, don't worry, we'll remember it." Ji and the other boys nodded solemnly after hearing this, their eyes no longer filled with guilt and full of fighting spirit. After Li Zhensheng beat his nephews, he didn't forget to give them a sweet date. "You are already very good now. Ji and Liu Yang have established a foothold in the Hailan army, echoing your father and Marquis' northern expedition. The heir apparent of the Liu family in the southwest is also on good terms with your eldest brother, at least in the army. Our family can say a few words. Jian and Jiaxi have also done well, especially Jiaxi marrying the queen and establishing a firm foothold in the overseas Golden Buddha Kingdom has left our family with the safest escape route. Although it is far away, it is also the safest." Ji and others' faces lit up when they were praised, as if their years of hard work had finally paid off. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 927. Chapter 927. The Tang family's olive branch. That night, the family ate dumplings that were both juicy and white. No matter where you are, dumplings are a favorite among northerners. On New Year's and holidays, even if there is something happy, it is not considered a celebration if there are no dumplings on the table. Everyone sat around, feeling satisfied and happy after eating. And just in response to that sentence, it's not that the whole family doesn't come into the house. Abe and Wen also love what they eat. Abe even kept saying that he should study hard and provide food to Jiaxi in the future. Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and others were all happy when they heard this, especially Zhao Yuru, who liked her daughter-in-law even more. Originally, because her daughter-in-law had a high status and was from a foreign country, she still had some grudges in her heart. But the daughter-in-law is so good to her son and puts him first in everything. As a mother, she appreciates it and is willing to treat her daughter-in-law better. After dinner, it was getting dark, and no one was talking to Jian and Jiaxi, so they sent them back to have a good rest. After breakfast on the second day, Mrs. Li originally wanted to take her grandson-in-law and great-grandson around the city. As a result, the Yu family heard about the Li family's reunion and took the initiative to come to congratulate them. After a while, Hulu also brought sister-in-law Mi over to deliver some fresh seafood. Soon after, Mrs. Tang came to join in the fun with her daughter-in-law and granddaughter. It's hard to say, but the Li family had to set up 2 banquet tables to entertain guests. Tao Hongying went to the kitchen and ordered the menu. Wen Juan and Huanyang pushed her away and hurried to accompany the guests. Huanyang said in a low voice, "Fourth sister-in-law, the old lady of the Tang family has always been interested in marrying her granddaughter into our family. Brother Cat is still young, and I am happy to get married again. I am afraid they came here today to see how we are doing. Go and listen quickly. You are Jian's mother. If when I comes in, she is your daughter-in-law. You have to nod." "Yes," fourth Aunt Wenjuan also urged, "and Geer is so promising now, you must check his marriage." Tao Hongying was also worried about it. She only gave birth to a son and a daughter. Her daughter would eventually get married, and there was no way she would spend the rest of her life with her son and daughter-in-law. When you, a girl, although she comes from a family of military generals, does not have a fierce and domineering temper. She is gentle and quiet, speaks with a smile, is simple and kind, and she seems to have been well brought up by her family. If her son likes it, she has no objection." Thinking like this, she hurried back to the flower hall where she was receiving guests. Sure enough, Mrs. Tang was holding Jian's hand and praising her constantly. "Oh, this kid has thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a tall figure. He looks so pleasing to the eye. This is what a good man who stands upright should look like." After saying that, she scolded Mrs. Li again, "You are so cruel. If other people have such a good grandson, they would want to hold it in their hands for fear of dropping it. How could you be so willing to leave your child floating at sea for several years? I can tell you, if you don't care, you must tell me. I will take him home and keep such a good boy as my eyeball." Old Mrs. Li heard the temptation in her words, but decided to play dumb. Although the Tang family is in a good situation and is one of the top families in Quanzhou, marrying the Tang family will definitely bring benefits and no harm. But in her heart, her grandson's lifelong happiness is more important. So, she snatched her grandson with a smile, stuffed it behind her, stared at him and quarreled like a child. Who doesn't feel sorry for the child? I like my eldest grandson so much. I like him so much that I ruthlessly let the child go out to learn skills. The ones raised at home are like sparrows, but the ones flying in the sky are the eagles." Okay, you have a point," Mrs. Tang laughed, glanced at her blushing granddaughter, and stopped her conversation in time. "They are all smart people. Just a few words to let the Li family know what they mean. But you can't say more, otherwise the marriage will not be successful and the reputation of the granddaughter will be affected if it spreads." However, she was still a little anxious. Jian, this boy, is really the best candidate for his grandson's son-in-law. Stable and easygoing personality, good looks, and tall. This time I brought envoys from 8 countries back to pay homage. The court will definitely give me a reward, and at least I can get a 5th rank official. Don't underestimate the 5th rank. After all, Jian was just a handyman in the Foreign Affairs Department before, and he didn't even get into the 5th rank. And how old he is now, the road ahead will be long. With the Li family as the foundation, Qingyun Road will definitely be broad and flat. If you don't grab such a good son-in-law candidate quickly, I'm afraid that when you return to Xindu in a few days, the matchmaker will break the threshold of the Li family." Thinking like this, Mrs. Tang was so shameless that she pushed her granddaughter again. Didn't you sew a strip on Grandma Li's forehead? Show it to Grandma Li, do you like it?" Mrs. Tang was a little arrogant and originally did not want her mother-in-law to be too proactive, but today she was satisfied with seeing Jian with her own eyes. So, at this moment, she rarely supported her daughter and said with a smile, "Yeah, don't be afraid of being embarrassed, your heart is important." Wen I's face turned even redder, but he still generously took a box from the maid behind him, stepped forward, and gave it to Mrs. Lee with both hands. "Grandma Lee, the sea breeze here is very strong. I thought you said you had a headache last time, so I embroidered this forehead embroidery. I hope you don't dislike it." "I don't dislike it, I don't dislike it." Mrs. Lee accepted the box with a cheerful smile. She took out her forehead wiper and looked at it carefully. The plum blossom pattern was embroidered on the red brocade. The embroidery work was very good and the stitches were fine. It is obvious that the Tang family is very devoted to the education of their children, and they are not reluctant to let her learn skills just because they are pampered. "Thank you, Yuan, the embroidery on the forehead is so good, I like it very much." Mrs. Lee was moved by the little girl's heart and the Tang family's decisiveness in extending an olive branch. She thought about it and gave a little feedback. When there is a chance in the future, if Yuan goes to Zindu, she must spend more time with our Funiur. Let our lazy girl be ashamed, her needlework is far worse than Yuan. Yuan smiled softly and shyly, and responded, "No one is perfect, everyone has his own strengths. The princess may not be as good as me in needlework, but when it comes to business, the princess is 10 blocks behind me. I also like to eat Bianjian snacks. I go out there every day and the business is so good. I heard that the princess has recently opened a fruit and vegetable shop and a hot pot restaurant in Zindu, and she is making a lot of money every day. I still receive pocket money from my elders, and I have never earned a penny myself." Hearing her granddaughter being praised, Mrs. Lee smiled even more happily. Even Jian couldn't help but take another look at Yuan. Just as Yuan raised his head, the two of them blushed when they looked at each other, and quickly lowered their heads. Everyone naturally saw it, and they didn't want the two children to be even more shy. And to be on the safe side, this matter must be carefully considered before it is settled. So, Zhao Yura changed her words and introduced Abe to everyone. Sure enough, Abe, the foreign queen, immediately attracted everyone's attention. The status of Tianwu women is not low, but they cannot escape the fate of being vassal to men. Except for those with titles such as princesses and princesses, who can have some freedom, other women cannot. Poor families have to work inside and outside, and are even beaten, scolded, and humiliated by their husbands and men. Even those whose parents-in-law's family are rich and have some power have been locked up in the backyard almost since they were born, and it is difficult to get out. Even if you get married, it's just a matter of changing from one backyard to another. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 928. Chapter 928 Adding Makeup. Now a woman sitting on the throne suddenly appears. Teli, how can we not make everyone curious and envious? Aibe's Tianwu dialect is not very proficient, but he is very good at observing people's words and has a good temperament. It is not difficult to communicate with everyone at once. Similarly, the two girls, Huan and Lin Lang, were not left out. Mrs. Wen accompanied them to talk about small daily things, and they also smiled like flowers from time to time. The days of happy gatherings always fly by quickly, and in a blink of an eye it is the day before Ji Yi and Lu Yang are to get married. According to the rules, this is the day when the woman's relatives and friends help add makeup. Naturally, there are friends on the Yu family and friends on the outer contest of Yu members to come to the show. It is very lively. Surprisingly, the small courtyard where Coral stayed temporarily was not deserted. Dr. Sun has been in the military camp for many years, and the number of people who have been treated and saved by his hands is not only not 10,000, but also several thousand. Now that he has adopted his adopted daughter, his son-in-law is still Li Jiyi. Some people who were truly grateful to him came with their wives and daughters to show their kindness to the Coral. Of course, I am also speculative, thinking that a good relationship with General Li's wife in the future will be repaid in the future. Even the women who worked together with Coral in the wounded barracks got together and bought a pair of gold-plated hairpins and sent them to her. It's just that because of the huge status difference between them and the guests, they are very restrained. Color did not neglect them, and specially invited sister-in-law me to entertain them. The snacks served were all egg tarts from Byangjian. The women were flattered. They thought that if Coral married Hai, he would not pay attention to them, friends in need, but they did not expect to be treated with such courtesy. Of course, they were still reluctant to eat the egg tarts they were given, and still had to wrap them up in handkerchiefs and give them to their children. The excuse is ready, take it back and make the children happy too. At this time, another distinguished guest was led to the backyard. It was none other than Miss Wenai from the Tang family. Color was also surprised and greeted her with a smile. Miss Wenai, why are you here? If you have anything to do, just ask Grandma to run over. How can it be done? Tang Wenai put on a curtain hat, smiled and lifted the gauze, revealing a face as white as the full moon, and replied, Sister Hualan is getting married, how can I not come to add makeup? After saying that, she added, I have already been to Sister Linlang's place just now. Sister Coral, don't be upset. Sister Linlang's place is really close to our home. How could it be? Linlang took her hand and sat down, smiling, I'm very happy if you can come. Tang Wenai took a box from the maid's hand and gave it to Hualu. Sister, it's better if you don't say I'm partial. I was shopping earlier and saw 2 sets of red gold headscarves that were very delicate, so I bought them both today. I have just 1 set for you and Sister Linlang. I wish you a happy marriage with flowers blooming together. Additional dowry is a wish, and the bride who is about to get married rarely refuses it for the sake of good luck. What's more, Tang Wenai has a good temperament, and Hualu also likes to socialize with her. So, Coral happily took it and thanked her sincerely, which made Tang Wenai narrow his eyes with a smile. The sisters-in-law who worked in the military camp were all surprised when they heard that Tang Wenai was the granddaughter of General Tang. They couldn't help but take a second look. Tang Wenai was not embarrassed and nodded to them generously. After saying a few more words, she refused the meal left by the Coral and went back with the maid. The sisters-in-law who worked in the military camp only dared to talk after they saw her leaving the house. Oh, General Tang's granddaughter is so beautiful, and she is dignified and polite. Yes, she is not like those young ladies from rich families who wish their eyes would grow to their foreheads. Such a good girl, don't you know if she's engaged? Even if you don't have an engagement, what else can you do? Such a noble girl will definitely marry into a wealthy family. Hualu came back from seeing off the guests. Hearing this, Hualu couldn't help but smile. If nothing else happens, Tang Wenai will definitely be her sister-in-law from now on. After all, ordinary women like such a good girl, and the Li family will also like it. Sure enough, in the evening, after dinner, the Li family sat together and chatted. Tang Wenai added makeup to Linlang and Huanhu, and was told by Granny Chang, who went to Hualu's place to help. Mrs. Li became more and more satisfied and asked Tao Hongying, Hongying, what do you think of this girl? Tao Hongying actually thinks it is good, but she has been with the old lady all the time and has a daughter who is different. She has not learned anything else and can still do it by fully respecting the children's opinions. So, she nodded and said, I think it's okay. I've seen it a few times and found that this girl is not a house disturber. But we still need to ask Jian about this. After all, she is his first wife who will live with him for the rest of his life. He must like her. Hearing this, everyone looked forward to home. Jian couldn't help but blush, coughed twice, and responded generously, Miss Wenai is gentle and generous, I think she can get along well with my mother and sister. It's just that she is from the Tang family. Is it feasible for our family to marry into the Tang family? I don't know the pros and cons. Old Mrs. Li felt that there was no harm in doing it, otherwise she would not have intentionally brought her grandson and Tang Wenai together, but at this moment, to be cautious, she still asked her eldest son. Zhen Sheng, what do you think? Li Zhensheng has thought about it carefully many times in the past few days. Due to the large number of people in the room, it was difficult to explain clearly, so he responded, "Mom, I also think there is no harm in marrying with the Tang family. After all, Ji Yi and Liu Yang will have to take root in the Helan army in the future. Jiaxi will often travel between Jinfo Kingdom and Tianwu, and Quanzhou is also a must-stop place. The Tang family will become our in-laws in the future, so they will naturally take more care of our family. Furthermore, it would be best if the Marquis and Lao Si disbanded their troops and returned to their fields, and came to stay for a few years to stay away from the disputes in the new capital." Everyone nodded and felt more relieved. Mrs. Li then patted Jian on the back and said with a smile, "Boy, let your uncle write a letter to Mr. Marquis and your second uncle in the next few days. If they think it's okay, Grandma will propose marriage to you." The tips of Jian's ears were a little red, but he still nodded. "If there is good news here, you must shout and protest on behalf of your brother. After all, the eldest brother and Wan'er fell in love at first sight, the second brother and Wenjuan fell in love with each other, and even Jiaxi and Abei shared will and woe. Jian settled on the Tang girl so easily, it was too fast no matter what. But here in Tianwu, marriage has always been the order of the parents. According to the words of the matchmaker, how many people only see their lifelong partner on the day of marriage? It is very rare for Jian to have met Tang Wenyu in person, to have a clear understanding of his character and temperament, and to be favored by the elders of both parties. In the Xindu Imperial Palace, lanterns have been hung up in various palaces. In the side hall of Xilan Palace, because biscuits had just been baked during the day, there was still a faint sweet smell lingering in the courtyard. The little maids and eunuchs who were doing chores were busy fetching water while talking about the jam-filled biscuits they shared during the day, all with joy. Ever since Princess Kangol moved here, Xilan Palace has been too lively. The lives of these low-level slaves have also become easier, they are no longer beaten or scolded, and occasionally they can take advantage of Princess Kangol's idea of something new. At this time, Shui Ling hurriedly ran in from outside and accidentally kicked down the bucket in the hand of the little palace maid. She had no time to speak and rushed directly into the bedroom. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 929. Chapter 929. Li Jiaxi is so lucky. Jiyan was having nothing to do. He took some pieces of material and planned to embroider some purses for his brothers. Her craftsmanship is average, but she can still embroider words such as the title of the gold medal. In 3 days, it's the big exam. It just so happens that she can leave the palace tomorrow. If she catches up in the space tonight, she can go home and give it to her brother in time. As soon as the ingredients were opened, Shui Ling rushed in and shouted, "Princess, Princess! What a happy event, what a happy event!" Jiyan's men were startled. They guessed some possibility, their hearts beat wildly, and they quickly asked, "Is it my brother and the others who have returned from the sea?" Shui Ling was out of breath as she ran, nodded vigorously, and said quickly, "Princess, Princess, just now my servant was delivering snacks to the emperor, and was temporarily captured by the steward to do a favor. He will come back later. As a result, I happened to hear that Quanzhou had sent an urgent memorial of 800 miles, and the 4th young master and the 5th young master had returned from overseas with envoys from 8 countries. Now I am staying in Quanzhou temporarily. I will go to Beijing immediately until the imperial edict is called." "That's great," Jiyan jumped up ecstatically, and her eye circles turned red the next moment. "You know, when my brothers went to sea, they got her support. In the past few years, she has been hiding a mountain of guilt in her heart all the time. She was afraid of hearing bad news, and she was even more afraid that her brothers would never hear from her. Every time her brothers were mentioned in the family, she would always talk and laugh. She was extremely sure that her brothers were safe and sound, which was actually for the sake of peace of mind for the family. She had countless nightmares privately and regretted them countless times. It's okay now, brothers are back safely. Finally home. She doesn't care how many envoys her brothers bring or what great achievements they perform, as long as they come back safely. Let's go see Uncle Huang, I want to ask him clearly. I couldn't bear the good news, but regardless of whether it was getting dark or not, I just lifted my legs and walked out. Shui Ling quickly followed. When Shui Yun heard the news and came out of the kitchen, they had disappeared. In the royal study, the emperor was talking to the marquis, and both of them looked happy. The emperor praised, "The Li family is really Tianwu's lucky star. Since their family arrived in Xindu, they have not caused any trouble for me. On the contrary, they have been constantly surprised. Not to mention that Li Zhensheng recovered high-yield grain and solved the food shortage of Tianwu people. Li Laosi and Li Jiyi were also in the army, fighting for the country. By the way, are the two boys from the Li family included in this big exam? Now two more have returned from the sea and made such great achievements. If everyone in the world were like the Li family, I would be able to sit back and relax." The slightly resolute lines on Mr. Ho's face became much softer now. He said, "If the Li family hears this, I'm afraid they will be extremely happy." From the old lady to the young men, the Li family is always grateful to the emperor. It gave them a place to stay and take root in Broken Gold Beach. The old lady always teaches her children and grandchildren to be grateful and loyal, and the boys are also gearing up and competing with each other to make a name for themselves. Now it seems that their determination was not in vain, and they finally repaid the emperor for his years of care and cultivation. Although he knew that these words were mostly polite, the emperor was still very happy to hear them. "Cousin, please don't put the credit on me. I have watched the Li family get to where they are today. Can I still be jealous? If you really want to be jealous, it's not my turn. The rich and aristocratic families in Xindu don't know why they are red-eyed. Their useless children and grandchildren spend all their time entertaining cats and dogs, eating, drinking and having fun, and together they are not as good as Li. There is only one boy in the family." This time, Mr. Ho nodded and agreed. The boys of the Li family are all raised freely without any strict instruction. Just because the family tradition is upright and open-minded, they all become talented under the influence of their ears and eyes. After that, he added, just now, taking advantage of the 800 miles of Hailan army rushing to deliver the memorial, Li Zhensheng also wrote me a letter. Li Jiyi is engaged and will take his new daughter-in-law home in the next few days. Oh, did Mrs. Li really agree to him marrying an orphan? The emperor naturally arranged manpower in Quanzhou to send the information to Xindu on time. Although he did not order anyone to monitor the words and deeds of the Li family in Quanzhou, the people in Quanzhou knew such news, and they certainly could not hide it from him. He even knew the details of the orphan girl's life and experiences. The marquis was not surprised, and nodded, and said, "Yes, the Li family has sent a betrothal gift and plans to solemnly marry her into the family. The Li family never cares about the woman's identity when marrying her grandson's daughter-in-law. As long as she has good character and the grandson likes her, there will be no obstruction." At this point, he laughed again and added a few words. "This time, the Li family has a double happiness. Not only is Jiyi getting married, but he may also have to make up for a wedding ceremony after a while. Because Jiexi also brought a daughter-in-law back from overseas, and even gave birth to a child." What, Li Jiexi married a foreign girl? The emperor was surprised when he heard this, and the fire of gossip burned in his heart. Fan country is such a barren land. It is said that it is uncivilized. Both men and women are covered with hair, like monkeys. How could the boy from the Li family fall in love with it? The marquis raised his hand to pour tea for the emperor, stretched it for a while, and saw the eagerness in his eyes, and then said, among the envoys from the 8 countries, there is the Queen of the Golden Buddha Kingdom. The emperor should have seen the list, right? Gxi married the Queen of the Golden Buddha Kingdom. It is said that when the fleet out to sea encountered a storm and drifted to the coast of the Golden Buddha Kingdom, Gxi was injured and was rescued by a woman from the Golden Buddha Kingdom. Later I found out that this woman was the princess of the Golden Buddha Kingdom. There were many Golden Buddha families, and they bullied the Golden Buddha King because he was seriously ill, and he coveted the beauty of the princess, and the prince was young, so Princess Golden Buddha asked Jia-11 and others for help, and finally eradicated the family. The princess went to the street to propose marriage, and Jia-11 took advantage of the opportunity to marry her 1/5 of the time. The two of them were in love, and another 5/5 of it was because Jia-11 wanted to have a reliable place for the fleet to repair and stop on the way back. Unexpectedly, on the way back, the king passed away, and the princess became queen and even gave birth to a boy. The emperor was surprised and amused when he heard this, and he sighed after a while, "The Li family is so lucky. If you marry a princess, you can inherit the throne." The marquis nodded and responded, "Yes, as the emperor said, the Fan people are not civilized and have insufficient rules and etiquette, so a woman can inherit the throne. Furthermore, the Golden Buddha Prince is obsessed with poetry and books and does not like the royal power. He was brought up by his sister since he was a child, so he supports his sister in taking over the royal power and has no intention of competing for it. The Golden Buddha is very peaceful now, even because the queen married me Tianwu man, the people were very happy. This time the Queen of the Golden Buddha went on an envoy and brought many treasures with her, which were all donated by the people on their own initiative. Sure enough, the emperor was also happy to hear that the people respected the Golden Buddha so much. He thought for a while and asked, "How far is this Golden Buddha kingdom from our Tianwu coast?" "It will take about a month to sail. If we, Tianwu, start shipping in the future, or travel with foreign countries overseas, the Golden Buddha is the most suitable place to transit. It's not far, but it's a pity that I didn't have a chance to go there and have a look." The emperor responded casually and said nothing more. Just at this time, Ji Yin rushed over and asked as soon as he entered the door, "Uncle Huang, foster father, but my 4th brother and 5th brother have returned safely from overseas." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 930. Chapter 930, Friendship Fighting Side by Side. The emperor nodded and said with a smile, "You are well informed. It is indeed your brothers who are back." "That's great," Ji Yin responded with great joy. "Before, some people from Quanzhou brought a kind of small beans called coffee from overseas. They roasted and ground them into powder and brewed them with hot water. It can refresh your mind. Brain. When my brothers went to sea, I asked them to bring back some more. When they arrived in Zindu, I figured it out and I would give Uncle Huang a taste. If it really refreshes your mind, your uncle won't have to stay up late to review the memorial." The emperor felt very happy when he heard the good news. It's really not in vain to hurt this girl. "Okay, Uncle Huang is waiting for your filial piety," the emperor happily agreed. A few people said a few more words, and the marquis was about to leave the palace. Ji Yin also hurriedly said goodbye and sent his adoptive father on his way. On the way, no outsiders were present, and the marquis briefly talked about Quanzhou. Ji Yin immediately realized the risk and asked in a low voice, "Father, if my brother marries the Golden Buddha Queen, will it have any impact on the family?" The marquis patted her on the shoulder and comforted her softly, "Don't worry, I will gather with your second uncle, Mr. Wen, and others tonight. The Queen of the Golden Buddha, being the wife of a Tianwu official, is an honor for Tianwu. Both the emperor and the officials, as well as the people of Tianwu, will be happy." Ji Yin understood and knew that the family was prepared to use public opinion to set the tone of the matter and not give anyone a chance to provoke. "Okay, I understand, adoptive father." Ji Yin has no other choice, and this is the best response for the time being. Soon, when we reached a fork in the road, the Marquis left the palace after giving a few instructions. Jiyan also took Xueling back to Highland Palace. As soon as she entered the door, she saw the third princess waiting anxiously. Jiyan, did something happen at home? Why did you run away in such a hurry just now? Jiyan is heartwarming. The friendship between the two of them because of fighting side by side during this period is still very solid. She took the three princesses to the side hall to have dinner together, and talked about family matters along the way. The third princess was so happy that she kept shouting, "If your brother brings back anything good from overseas, you can't forget me. Don't worry, I'll leave you a share of the good things." Jiyan put aside her worries and started laughing with her. Compared to some troubles, the safety of my brothers is naturally the most important. As long as brothers return safely, the rest can be solved slowly. Early on the second day, after dinner, Jiyan took Xueling and Shuiyun and left the palace early. Possibly guessing that she was coming back, Wan'er hugged Yuan Yuan and waited in front of the second door early. As soon as she saw her sister-in-law, she quickly greeted her, "My sister is back." "Sister-in-law, it's still a bit cold in the morning. Why are you holding your nephew here to enjoy the wind? Come in quickly." Jiyan took the heavy little nephew and gave him a big kiss on his fat face, making him giggle. Wan'er also laughed and said in a low voice, "Your brothers are all in the study. Hurry up and change your clothes and go over to take a look. I heard that the fourth and fifth brothers came back safely." Everyone was so excited that they didn't close their eyes for half the night. "Okay, sister-in-law. The day before yesterday, I got a pair of emerald begonia flowers. They are just right for my sister-in-law at her age." After a while, my sister-in-law put them away and put them on when she sent my eldest brother to take the exam. He was very happy and got a good one. Jiyan hugged her nephew and walked in with her sister-in-law. Wan'er felt happy and guilty after hearing this. Sister-in-laws always send jewelry and fabrics to their sisters-in-law. Thank God for coaxing the sisters-in-law into not causing trouble. When she came here, her sister-in-law was sensible and well-behaved. She never made things difficult for her. She also gave her fabrics and jewelry every now and then, and they were all good things from the palace. She always felt that their roles were reversed, and her sister-in-law blushed. Fortunately, she was not completely unprepared. She simply put away the jewelry and said, "Okay, sister-in-law, I will listen to you. I had nothing to do the past few days, so my sister-in-law made 2 pairs of shoes, which are the most popular shoes in the city. Take a pair of beads and tassel shoes with you when you return to the palace, and give the third princess a pair." "Thank you, sister-in-law." Jiyan smiled brightly and complained to her sister-in-law, "Sister-in-law is so nice. The third princess is so squeamish. If she sees that I have new shoes but she doesn't, she will be angry if she keeps them." Wan'er also smiled, "The third princess's temper may seem bad, but it's actually just her little daughter who is coquettish. Fortunately, she treats you well." The aunt and sister-in-law went to the backyard while talking. Soon, Jiyan changed into a comfortable and beautiful homely dress, and then went to the study room in the front yard. Because he returned to his home, Muju no longer had to hide in the dark, he showed up directly and joined in the fun. In the study, not only Jiaran and brother Li were present, but also Luzon, Jiasu, and Guo Wenhao. It has been a long time since we saw good news, so everyone naturally got close to each other and asked how good news was in the palace. Good news cannot be said that she and the Queen Mother fought like black-eyed chickens every day, and almost drove the Queen Mother crazy. So, she picked a few interesting things to tell, and everyone laughed a few times. The waiter served hot tea and snacks again, and Jiyan asked Xueling to bring a basket. The basket contains 5 tin boxes, each of which is only the size of a palm and is very delicate. Jiyan opened one, let everyone take a look, and said with a smile, "In a few days, brothers will have their exams. I can't do much to help, I can only think about some food. This box contains milk tea powder, take it with you after entering the venue. If you feel hungry or sleepy, just take 2 spoons and make a cup with hot water, keep it and you will be full of thoughts. Luzong and Jiasu had drank milk tea, and when they heard this, they were both extremely happy. Luzong thanked her profusely, "Thank you, Princess, this is a good thing. The weather is still a bit cold now, but with hot milk tea, we are not afraid of the cold anymore. Yes, with the milk tea from the princess sister, if we don't get into the top spot, we won't be able to see anyone." Jiasu also smiled and said thanks. Jiyan distributed the box to several people and said with a smile, "Brothers, just relax and do your best. Luck favors those who work hard, and brothers will definitely be on the gold list. I would like to borrow the good words from my sister, the princess." "Thank you, Princess." Everyone thanked them and took their own box, including Jiaran and brother Li. At that time, Guo Wenhao was a little hesitant. He had just passed the scholar examination and was not able to finish the exam yet. So, he said, "Princess, I will not take the exam this time. This milk tea powder. Brother Wenhao, just take it, it's just some fresh food, it doesn't matter whether you take the exam or not." Jiyan smiled and comforted him. It would be better to leave a whole village without leaving a single person behind. Guo Wenhao originally had a sensitive and quiet temper, and Jiyan didn't want to make him feel inferior and heartbroken over such a trivial matter. Sure enough, Guo Wenhao smiled widely and held the iron box tightly with his hands under his sleeves. Everyone chatted a few more words, and Luzong and others knew that the Li brothers and sisters would definitely discuss the matter in Quanzhou, so they left quickly. After sending them away, brother Li took his sister and talked. "Sister, the 4th brother and the 5th brother are back. Last night, the Marquis said that the 4th brother also married a queen and gave birth to nephews." End of this chapter.